Hey, welcome everyone to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your host, Dean Marash. Joining us today is none other than Bud Brutsman, executive TV producer, all-around car guy, and adventurous. But before we get started, I need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by our good friends at C-Tech and Wicked Automotive Detailing. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, the SoCal Car Scene, so that you never miss an episode. Hey, let me take a few minutes and introduce you to our very, very special guest, Bud Brutsman. He's a producer, entrepreneur, military buff, off-road racer, and that's just for starters. He's written 3 books on the Navy SEALs, created a special task force to rescue climbers on none other than Mount Everest and in Baja. He's a high-energy type, an A personality, known also for producing hit series like Overhaulin, Rides, Hot Rod TV, Extreme RVs, SCORE World Desert Championship, Dust to Glory, Animal Storm Squad, Flippin RVs, and that's just to name a few. He created the definitive event in mixed martial arts. I'm sure many of you know King of the Cage and Shark Fights. He won his first in class at SCORE Baja 1000 and was one of the 2008 Raptor development team drivers. And hot off the press, a show that he's produced on Discovery Channel is about to go live, Expedition Back to the Future, which we just can't wait to explore in our chat with him today. Hey, Bud, thanks for joining us on the SoCal Car Scene, man.
That's a long intro. That sounds like I've been doing that for a long time. That's a lot of stuff to cram in there. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, man, that's a short one. Are you kidding? That's the abbreviated version. You know, with a person like you and your incredible experience, we had to cut to the chase, man.
Yeah, you go get all the newer stuff in there. Yeah, it's good. Right. Yeah, it's been fun. Good ride so far.
How many, just out of curiosity, how many TV shows have you produced or been involved in? Or
well, pretty lucky that I really haven't done anything other than produce or executive produce. Right. Which is like, creating shows, financing shows, putting shows together, selling to the network. It's kind of been my only thing I've done for the past 27 or 28 years. Individual episodes, I don't know, tens of thousands of individual episodes. Wow. There's probably series-wise 300 to 400 series.
That's incredible.
I've created and developed and shot and been a part of. So yeah, it's been an amazing ride so far.
Congratulations, man. Really excited for all your success and looking forward to everything you got going. A couple of my guests have reached out to me and said, hey, you got to get this Bud guy on the show. And one of them was Sherry Westerich and Carson Lev. Both said, yeah, you got to get him on the show. And I'm like, all right, settle down. Who's Bud? Well,
Sherry's pretty amazing. I love her. I brought her back on the last season that we just did at Overhaul. But yeah, she's been friend of mine and my wife's for, 15 years, 16 years, one of the original A-team members. But yeah, she's pretty amazing.
She is. And so we had a great episode with her, laughing and smiling and joking the whole time. Always got a smile on her face. And I'll tell you what a great person she is. She was telling me, I said, well, what show was the most fun? You've been involved in a lot of car TV shows and stuff. And she said, Rock My RV with Bret Michaels and you. She said it was hilarious. She said, I spent so much time laughing on that show. And, I don't know if Bud knows that, we'd have to break it up because we were laughing so hard. We just had to go. Everybody had to go in their separate areas of the lot because it was just too funny.
Okay, so I'm an idiot. I forgot she was on Rock My RV. I forgot. I remember. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I had so many shows at the time, and that sounds so crazy to say. And I always pull all these build teams together. We're building these really crazy RVs with, the Bret Michael and I would design and put together. And I forgot. I would always, I pulled Bodie in there, and I forgot if I had her on the team. That's crazy.
Yeah, she mentioned Bodie as well. Really had a blast with him.
Yeah, Bodie Stroud's awesome. But yeah, just all these guys. I'm lucky because a lot of people, and they're all generally normal human beings, including Chip, until I say, hey, I got a TV show, let's go do something stupid. And then they just follow me. They're like, oh, okay, that's great. We're gonna rebuild an RV in less than 2 weeks. Oh, that sounds great. And then they just end up doing it. It's kind of fun.
And they don't know that you're ruining their lives when you do that, but it's all for the show, right? Hey, you got to make sacrifices.
it's really just their personal lives and their social life. But
oh, I see. Okay.
here's the thing: your social life, your personal life gets better because you're enriched with all these amazing experiences. Right? We're building RVs for a former Navy SEAL who was part of SEAL Team 6, and you're hanging out with Brett Michaels, right? So you become, although I am stealing part of your youth, and you're definitely ruining your entire life for a couple months, but you become a better, stronger, deeper person.
Look at the upside, right?
Yeah, the upside.
What the hell? So that's funny. That's a great perspective. It makes sense, right? 2 weeks to build an RV, 1 week to build a car on overhauling. No problem. Easy.
Yep, no problem. Then you go home to your boring life. What'd you do last week? Oh, I just built an RV for a Navy SEAL. Oh, that sounds cool. What'd you do? Went to Walmart. So
yeah, did some online shopping during the pandemic. Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just fun. You got to have interesting stuff to do.
Hey, so you've been doing this, producing TV shows for some time, especially car shows, right? I noticed a recurring theme in there, although you've done a lot of adventure stuff and off-road racing and Everest, and, you've kind of touched all areas. But how'd you get started in this car show genre, TV car show genre, if you will?
Well, really, I kind of grew up around that kind. I grew up around cars in the 80s. In the 80s with my dad. My dad was racing at the time, just short track in Colorado, Wyoming. My brother was really into cars. I was really into cars. And then Discovery, I was doing some work with Discovery Channel early on in my career, and early on in Discovery's kind of, before they dominated the unscripted kind of documentary world. And the owner of Discovery and his young son at the time, were going to launch this channel called Turbo, and they wanted automotive content. So I started developing and working on many, many concepts of how to do it. I sold one of my first series to TLC, which is going to be the slot on Tuesday nights called Turbo Night. And that series, it was called Rides, and Rides just turned out to be this kind of epic Rodder's Journal, amazing picturesque version of what, and you're in the business. I mean, the goal of my series Rides was just do the artwork justice, right? Show the artwork as it is, a piece of artwork, not a hot rod show where you're doing burnouts and drinking beer and do all the other stuff. This is really like, these are pieces of art. These are people's, their thoughts, and their thoughts go on the paper, and the paper turns into metal, and you're shaping metal into this timeless art. And I say timeless art because we built cars 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and they're in museums now. I mean, it's so, and I don't know, I wanted to pay homage to the hobby, and that's what Rides was about. And then it got, if I remember really clearly, as we got picked up for more and more episodes, I stopped doing that. And then I started morphing the thought process of automotive into, okay, well, let's go racing. Let's have fun. Let's go hang out with the Corvette team. Or like, if any car guy wants to go do something, what do you do? Well,
racing.
It was more than that, because and people misunderstand racing, which is why I like Baja so much, but people must misunderstand racing, and you don't get it until you get there early, right? You can go to Sebring and watch the Corvette team go round and round and get place 1 and 2, right?
Yep.
Which they've done for almost 20 years. But to go to Michigan and sit down with Doug Feehan at Pratt Miller and kind of watch their planning and prepping the car and working on the car and weighing each one, and then, building these bags, which is amazing, is everybody saw the Ford versus Ferrari scene where Carroll Shelby kind of was changing out brakes in the middle of Mall, right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously that happens, but to watch these guys, put the brakes on the Corvette, on all these quick releases and all this stuff, and then pull it in the bag, and then label the bag and set it aside so if they can do that. I mean, it's just war. These guys are literally, and no disrespect to veterans, because I appreciate veterans, but they're really, the operational part of it is just preparing for war. So there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So by the time that, like in 2006, when I was with the C6R team, the Corvette racing team, we followed them for a season. Really a couple of races, but we went down to Sebring. Man, that was just exciting. It was just fun to watch them build the car, launch the car, prep the car and wreck the car and clean the car back up and get out there and go to battle. It's just fun. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, you give us the insight with your, all the shows you've done that we don't have. Like you said, you can go to the race, you can watch it on TV, you can watch Indy. But, we all want to get into the pits, right? the pit pass is where the action's at. And I had pit passes down here, Long Beach Grand Prix, a couple of times. And oh my God, I'll tell you what, that's better than the race. That's for sure. So you give us kind of that inside out perspective with all the shows. So Rides is kind of where it really got started. And then of course you launched Overhaulin at some point. Is TV show car production like Hollywood or unlike Hollywood? I mean, it feels like it's really not Hollywood in a traditional sense.
Well, here's the good news. I don't really know because I'm not part of Hollywood. I don't like hang out with those idiots, and I don't go to their award shows and do all that stuff. I'm more in Ricky Gervais's camp.
Oh man, Ricky Gervais! I was watching that the other day. Are you kidding? That guy, that was epic.
That guy's a genius, right? That guy's a genius. Take your little award, thank your God, and yeah, no, we're in the entertainment business. That's where it kind of ends and beginning and end of it. We're in a different part of the industry. Right. And I'm kind of to myself, right? I'm on an island. There's not many people that do what I do as far as adventure and build and race and car and stuff like that. And we've kind of carved, and I don't say carved, we kind of built our own niche and figured out how to do stuff a little bit differently. So it's good, very good actually.
Yeah, it seems to me dramatically different. Car people, we always talk about in my business here at the car storage business, that most all of my customers, regardless of how wealthy or, underprivileged they are, one thing in common, car people always are trying to help each other out. And it's more of a community. And you don't get a sense of arrogance and, positioning or posturing. And that's one of the things that I love about this industry, like no other. Seems like, there's just that community sense you get to it all.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's very much like that. So I do have to ask you about some weird stuff in the background. So I'm happy about one thing, I think, and then I'm disappointed about another one, maybe. Uh-oh. So it looks like you have and it's hard to tell because it's tiny. Okay. It looks like a 67 George Fromer Mustang on the left.
Yeah.
Then you have a plate. Why would you have a plate?
Well, let's see. So this is the Budmore Cougar.
Budmore Cougar. That was my second guess, by the way, because of the red. But yeah, that's cool.
So this is the Budmore Cougar. I have a 67 Cougar XR7 Dan Gurney special that may never get out of the paint shop. And this plate is a 57 T-Bird. I think it's a 57. No, maybe it's a 56. But I have a 57 T-Bird of my dad's here in the shop.
Oh, nice. All right.
And it's then, still a plate.
Still a plate, by the way.
You probably recognize this guy, right? So I don't know what this got to do with anything, but what the hell, we'll share, right? So,
is that Elliot's?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, nice.
And it's signed right here on the windshield. My brother-in-law, used to.
By Chase or by Bill?
By his son, Chase.
Yeah, okay.
My brother, I don't know. I'm lost.
It's his son. I'll see him tomorrow. I'm gonna be at the track tomorrow.
No shit. Sorry, I swear. That is awesome.
I'm really bummed that I missed the Budmore Cougar because that was my second guess. I thought but it's small. It's up there. I'm like, okay, so it's either a 67 Mustang or a Cougar, but I said Mustang first. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of the odd guy. I if anything's mainstream, I kind of go a little bit right or left. Mercury's my thing. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about Rides. Maybe Rides was where it really got started, but Overhaulin took it to the next level because from my perspective, it seems like the bar that still hasn't been topped, if you will. So tell us a little bit about Overhaulin. It's a breakout hit. I still feel like it's a gold standard, but maybe I'm overstating it a little bit.
I don't know. It's personal preference, obviously, right? It's a little different than, Gas Monkey Garage and Top Gear and the other stuff. So it really is it has to be the gold standard. It's been on for 18 years now.
Wow.
When I got the network connection and I started working really hard on rides.
Yep.
Life is very funny. Life is a lot of guesswork, a lot of luck, and a lot of serendipitous relationships. My pile of episodes I did on rides is I partnered. I interviewed a lot of builders, right? So I had a good friend of mine named Jim Holloway, who you're familiar with. He took me around to a lot of shops, and I talked to a lot of shop people, and I was interviewing a lot of builders. I'm like, okay, I have this one episode. I had one episode, a pilot to do on this series called Rides. And if that series goes well, or if that pilot goes well, I get a series on the backside. No, so they said, okay, we're gonna greenlight you for one episode, so you got to make it good.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I for some reason I remember the pressure. I don't even care. I interviewed a lot of guys. I mean, and they're all good friends of mine. They're all great. So I'm not going to tell them who lost and who didn't, but it doesn't matter. I interviewed a lot of guys and went to a lot of shops and talked to a lot of guys, talked about their projects, talked about what they have coming up and what the goal was. Right. And so I interviewed this one guy in Huntington Beach named Chip, and I went down there, I talked to him, and he starts showing me stuff, and he starts talking to me. And you remember Chip was probably 37, 38 at the time. He was super young. And he's like, here's what we could do. And we could do this and we could do that. And then luckily for me, Chip saw something in me, right, as a filmmaker. And he turned to me, and then he just kept calling me. He's like, okay, I got this. And then he called me. He says, okay, I got Ford's going to give me a dollar car, and we're going to build that dollar car specifically for this show. And then that dollar car will then be debuted at SEMA, and that'll be your story structure. And all the other guys, the other guys, it's just how business is, right? All the other guys like, well, I don't know if I'm going to have anything ready. And this one takes 2 years, kind of like your T-Bird. This one takes 1.5 years. That one takes it's still in pain. Like no one was committing to like, hey, I'd like to get this done in the next 4 months. Or let's do a show, and what's the beginning, middle, end of the story, right? And
this guy named Chip Foose is almost like your assistant producer or something like.
Absolutely. He's like, okay, I can get a brand new T-Bird, right? If you remember that car, if you're a car guy, you remember the car.
Yeah.
I'll get a brand new T-Bird from Ford, and then we'll chop the top of it off. It was a convertible anyhow, but we'll chop the top off, make it a roadster, clay model the entire front end and rear end, which is, I always think is kind of weird, dude, too. You got to think about this. Even though I guess it's normal, but one of his close friends is Jay Mays, who was the head of global design for Ford at the time. And the first thing, what Ford does, and I know it's supposed to happen, but it's also a little bit weird to me. And also there are manufacturing issues, but they give a guy like Chip this brand new car that they just spent years and years developing. What does he do? He chops it up, takes off the front end, reclay models the rear, redoes the exhaust, redoes all the little, the chrome pieces on it.
Yeah.
So what we ended up having was just amazing hybrid, right? We had this car, brand new. It was yellow at the time, yellow convertible, blew the windshield off, pull all the things apart, start clay. We did a whole clay model on it, pulled brand new parts, pulled everything, did it, the hood scoop, side fins, interior, made it a complete roadster, thrashed like hell to get it to SEMA. Like it was late as usually. It's like,
aren't they all?
If SEMA starts on Tuesday morning, I know for a fact, because I've done it so many times with Chip now. If it starts on Tuesday morning, Monday morning, we're finishing the car and pushing it into the trailer.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. So, Chip saw something in the opportunity with us and with me, and we ended up being our pilot episode for Rides was that one. Then when I turned it into the network, they're like, great. Okay, do it 15 more times. And I just got back from SEMA. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. But okay. So then the parade of fun started.
Well, that's a great story. I got to wonder if Chip is better than most design studios for a lot of these car companies, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but here's a guy took a car that was really kind of a styling turd, that those relaunched T-Birds. They were not me. They were not pretty.
No.
And he turned it into something that people, can oogle over and arguably win any kind of competition. I mean, so the fact that he got out clay, how many of these guys actually use clay other than the manufacturers?
The clay, none of them. They just change it in the tube and they do this, and like he'll shape it in clay, and they'll shape it out of cardboard and shape it out of tape and then build it out of metal and put it. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, it was fascinating to watch.
Well, what a great show. I think everybody is a fanboy on that one. So consider me part of your fanboy community, if there's such a thing. What an epic show. And, I don't know, just can't say enough about, speaking of other car shows, you got a million of them: Hot Rod TV, Rides, Battle of the Builders. We talked about Rides, Battle of the Builders. We didn't talk about Rock My RV. We mentioned what's the secret sauce to creating addictive car shows? This is one that I'm addicted to right now. And, I don't think you have anything to do with it, but it's Street Outlaws. And I'm not even a street racer, but I got to watch that show every week to see what the hell's happening with the 405 and out in Oklahoma and down there in Memphis with their, I don't know what it is. I can't.
Listen, dude, it's like House Hunters, right?
It's like junk.
Yeah, no, it's just formatting and storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And if you get a good producer and a good writer and they kind of drag you along and here's what's happening and they catch you early on, right? It's like storytelling. First 10 minutes, 5 minutes of a movie, you got to hook people. You got to lay the hook, right?
Yeah.
And then just like fishing, you just let them take the line out, watch the rest of the story develop, and then right when you're about ready to get bored, 15, 20 minutes before it ends, you start pulling them in. You're like, okay, here comes the story. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. So
is that when you blow crap up right about then, 15 minutes, or
yeah, you kill somebody, blow shit up. Do something fun.
Right. No, you know what? We also had a couple on here that was on our show, and Doug Campbell and Marisa Campbell, and they were out in my warehouse one day, and they brought their really bitchin' super performance Cobra and Daytona car in here. And they were just like, yeah, we got punked. It was an epic punk. And, they basically said my neighbors were bitching that my car was too loud. So we had to impound the car. Well, I guess that had happened to her. So you guys do a lot of research on these punks to make sure that it sounds realistic. Yeah. And she was so mad. I guess she's Italian. She said, man, I was madder than hell at my neighbors. And I was ready to go over there and,
you have to think about this. In order for me to make you believe some things, I generally have to base it in reality, right?
Yep.
So Doug came to me as we're trying to figure out these things, right? And the one thing, it doesn't seem like it now because I talk a lot, but the one thing that I do pretty well is listen, right? Especially when I'm trying to figure out like how to completely just mind melt someone.
Yeah.
So Doug and I sat down for our initial meetings, like we got to pull this prank off. How are we going to do it? And he's like, well, she doesn't get along with all the neighbors, and some of the neighbors are kind of bitchy, and a couple of them had made some comments regarding the car being too loud and you should get mufflers on it, and stuff like that. And you just kind of shrug that off. So when we ended up doing, obviously, if you watch the episode, is we ended up impounding the car under a noise ordinance. We put a boot on it, and the part that we cut out because she, I'm not sure if she's Italian or she just. No, there's some other kind of blood running through there. She was so pissed off, right?
Mom blood, I don't know.
Yeah, no, she was vampire murderous, because what we ended up doing, and I'm not gonna tell everybody the names, but we ended up doing is we took her real neighbors' names, the ones that were bitching about it, and we put them up at the top. Oh yeah, we had we scribbled somebody's name, but then we put Melissa Reeves' name on there, whoever their name was, right? And then Catherine somebody and Kim somebody. And she's like, she looks like those bitches. And she was so mad. And she was like, so we cut it out because she, it was artificially, and we didn't want her to disrespect her name, but we put her real neighbors' names on there. And she's like, how did my name, it's literally one like, I just saw that bitch this morning, and she's signing a petition to impound my car. She was pissed because the level of betrayal, right? Even though it was fake, but the level of betrayal it was for her to get her car impounded by her neighbors, who she just talked to that day. Yeah, she was upset.
She owned up to the fact she lost her shit, which is great. And the fact that Doug is still married to her is probably even more amazing after that.
Well, the whole how Doug got married to her, or how, those of you guys even being married, is amazing too, because Doug does not deserve her, because she's amazing.
Yeah, I did ask Doug. I said, hey man, did you try to impress her with your car? What the hell? He said, in Doug fashion, yeah, one day I drove by her office and threw her some pipes. He threw her some pipes. I'm like, okay, Doug. Those guys are amazing. But hey, I want to take a minute. Sorry to interrupt this great fun. I got to give a shout out to one of our sponsors here. Are you folks out there looking for a smarter way to charge your car's battery? Our friends at C-Tech lead the way in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries. C-Tech's unparalleled knowledge and continuous investment in innovation means they offer high quality, reliable chargers that are effective, easy to use, and most importantly, safe for the user and their car's electric system. The quality of C-Tech's products make them the trusted company of the world's most recognizable car brands. Get yours today at smartercharger.com and type in the code SoCal, all caps, at checkout and get a 10% discount on all SeaTech products. All right, so now we want to get into this, the meat and potatoes today, because when I reached out to you and you were kind enough to agree to be on our show, man, I couldn't have been more excited to hear about what you got going. This launch on Discovery Channel in a week or so, Expedition Back to the Future. Did I get it right?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I usually don't do much press, and everybody wants to get me on and talk about old shows and stuff that we do in the past, but I've been doing a lot lately because, we have a huge show coming out on Discovery Channel or Discovery Plus, which is their new streaming platform. And we're the premiere episode or the premiere series launching that week of March 15th.
March 15th. Okay.
Yeah, which is huge because we originally, I don't even think Discovery Plus was an idea when we got the show greenlit back in, it must have been, probably 2019, early 2009, mid 2019. Chris Lloyd and I went to Discovery and sold the series, and we started working on it. And then we went into production, like it was almost 2 days before the pandemic. So March 16th, 17th, we're slated to go to production, and then the world shut down. And then it took us 4 or 5 months, and then we got back up and running, and we had to do huge protocols. But we shot a big chunk of this during the pandemic with, an 81, 82-year-old guy who's a little susceptible, and a huge star in Josh Gates, and all these other, celebrities that we had involved. We had to be super, super careful. But that's just, I thrive on that. I think it's, if you want me to shoot a show in a pandemic, that sounds, bet you I won't be able to say that again. So I did.
Yeah. So what's harder, that or running a race down in Baja? That might be harder. Who knows?
Oh no, it's much harder. Yeah, no, it's much harder to deal with everybody's BS with the pandemic and all. It's like Baja's much easier because it's just lawless and hit your right foot and try not to die. There's a lot more rules in producing in the pandemic than there is racing in Baja.
And a somewhat related comment, or maybe unrelated. What'd you think when Tom Cruise lost his shit during the pandemic filming of, was it Mission Impossible or something? I thought, man, there must be a lot of tension on that set. And maybe there's tension on any set that's trying to do something in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, it's, I don't agree with losing your shit and screaming at crew members and stuff like that. And that's definitely not his place. I think he should just, guys like him in his position should just tap the producer, pull the producer aside, and have the producer handle it instead of, putting yourself out front like that. Because here's the thing, is it is true for those of us who wanted to work, and trust me, there was an enormous amount of group of people who didn't want to work. They thought it was a year vacation. But for those of us who want to work, right? Right. And we wanted to say, okay, tell us what the rules are and what we have to do. We'll follow those rules and we'll go back to work. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. And I don't care if you believe in it or don't believe in it. It doesn't matter. This is what you have to do in order to get the paycheck, or you can sit at home and get your unemployment and be happy and shop online and do whatever you want to do. But yeah, I think something had to been said if people were not following protocol. And, because it's hard. Even with our crew, we had created a bubble. You couldn't go. It's hard to stop crew people and normal people. It's like, yes, you're in New York. No, you can't go out to the bar. No, you can't go see your uncle. Like, you don't understand that. Like, the hard part is everybody wants to, and I use this very loosely, but everybody wants to play pandemic, right? And play pandemic until it points at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what do you mean I can't go see my friends? Like, okay, we're playing pandemic, which means you don't see anybody. Like, you stay in this bubble, you go to work, you go home, and you don't see anybody. Going out to the restaurant, going to a baby shower, going to the beach. None of that. So if everybody wants to play pandemic, let's do that. If that's what it means to get business going forward. But
I think it's really difficult to do anything when you travel without going to a bar or drinking or socializing. It's the thing that normalizes when you're out of pocket, hanging out with people. The last thing you want to do is hang out in your hotel room, right? But that's that's the pandemic bubble protocol, I'm sure.
Oh, it is. I shot a bunch of shows during the pandemic, and it was just like, go to set, get tested, go to set, test. We tested almost every single day. Go to set and you come back to the hotel. And if there's a restaurant there, you eat and drink there, you go to your room, right? And especially the people that scream the loudest, in my opinion, the people who scream the loudest about how horrible the pandemic are the ones who break the rules the first. Yeah. Like, where are you going? You can't go out. Like, what are you doing? Anyhow.
So tell us more about the show. Doc, Doc, I call him Doc. I guess I shouldn't call him that, but he comes to you Doc Brown, that's who he is. He comes to you and he says, "Hey man, I got this idea," or did you approach him?
Oh, I approached Chris. Yeah, Chris and I, Chris Lloyd, who played Doc Brown, is one of the greatest living actors we have. He's phenomenal. Amazing. Oh, he is. If you think about his resume and what he's done, it's so like crazy. His first movie, he's a theater actor, right? So his first movie, can you name it?
Nope.
So his first movie was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
No kidding.
His first role in TV, can you name his first role in TV?
Nope.
Jim Ignatowski on Taxi. So this guy's just getting these just massively iconic roles. Like, I'm going to do some film. And then he gets in Cuckoo's Nest opposite Jack Nicholson. Wow. I was like, I'm going to go out to LA and see if I can get into that TV game. And then he gets put on Taxi is one of the most iconic, characters in television, Jim Ignatowski, the Reverend Jim. So I approached him, and then he and I spent some time in Santa Barbara kind of working on the details, what is interesting about it, and what he always thought is like, I wonder what happened to this, and let's hunt down some of these special cars. And, and he's so beloved by his cast members, it was really easy. They're like, it's funny, I guess in an alum like that, when you call them, you're like, hey, I'm working on this show. Who else you working on?
That's the first question. Well, I don't know if I want to join, but who else you got?
Like, I got Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. They're like, okay, we'll do it. Like, all right, that's great.
Wow, that was easy. So yeah, Christopher Lloyd is just that beloved, and of course, we all love Michael J. Fox, and we all know his story and the challenges he's had with his health, but he's still out there doing his thing. It's great that you got him on board this project. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing having Michael. I mean, it was definitely, it was touch and go. Because, I remember back in April of 2020, I'm not joking about this. So April of 2020, we were going to do this iconic shot with Michael in Hollywood at it was AMC Fan Fest. They were doing this 80s movie fan fest, and they were blocking off Hollywood Boulevard. And how the show's evolved, well, we were supposed to bring in 300 Deloreans. We're gonna break the world's record on the largest collection of Deloreans and large gathering of Deloreans in the world, which is 270. We're gonna get 300. And then because he was going to be in, I talked to AMC about it. They had this movie fest going on, and and when I talked to Michael's people, they said, hey, why don't we do it when he's out to LA at the movie fest? I'm like, oh, okay. So I talked to movie fest, and I told him, listen, I'll pay to block off the street. I'll get 300 Deloreans there. We'll do all kinds of stuff, and then we would like to shoot some scenes with Michael. And so that was all in process. It was ready to go, and then it all went away. Gathering, 4,000 people on Hollywood Boulevard outside of Mann's Chinese Theater, all of a sudden couldn't be further away from where we are today, right? You can't even imagine. Let's get 20,000 people to clog around Hollywood Boulevard around Michael J. Fox. Nah, not really. Not for the next 5 or 6 years. That ain't gonna happen. You're not gonna see that kind of foolish tomfoolery for a long time. Yeah, so then we really had to have stopped down and rewrite and kind of evolve the entire show.
Well, it's so funny. This has become our new normal, right? I mean, we're trying to work our way out of it, but isn't it ironic? We haven't got to that old normal. We're still in this new normal, or maybe we're in this transitional period. But it sounds like in your craft, you just kind of have to pivot and recast your script or your story or whatever, right? I mean, you're already in it. It's not like you have a choice.
Well, unfortunately, the networks have a choice because they canceled a lot of shows that were undoable. They may say, yeah, you know what, that's not a doable thing, right? The networks and everybody are pretty sensitive about dating a show, right? If you'll see in our show, even though we were super careful and we had doctors and nurses on set all the time taking tests and stuff like that, so there's no masks on our set. I mean, everybody behind the camera we're gloved up like it's
triple layer
Dustin Hoffman movie, with a bio camo suit, because we didn't want to. I said that I had this horrible thing. It's horrible, and I said it to his wife. Nobody wants to kill Doc Brown. It was kind of our mantra, right? Because he's 81 at the time, and at the time, if you look at the press and the news, when we were shooting this in October, in October and August and September and October, nobody wants to kill Doc Brown.
Yeah, it's just better not kill your grandmother, your grandfather. That was the narrative at the time.
Which would be better than killing Doc Brown, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, a handful of people are going to miss grandma. But when Doc Brown dies and you're the guy who gave him COVID and he died, it's
You might
terrible.
as well
So
just jump off.
yeah. So luckily that didn't happen.
Thank
Luckily
God.
we got through it. Nobody killed Doc Brown and he survived. And I don't even think I don't think they would kill him. He's too tough.
So, hey, Leah Thompson, did you get her back? I mean, come on, man. I know all of us had crushes on her. Is she going to join the show for a little bit?
Leah is amazing. We shot a bunch of stuff with Leah, and she's 100. I mean, it's really weird. Some of the actors of Back to the Future in the trilogy want to be involved, and some of them are kind of like, do I have to do that again? And she's moved on, and she's obviously a great actress and a director and a producer of her own stuff. And then, but we, through Chris and some other thing, we ended up convincing her to be on it. So yeah, she's in it, and she plays it's not even a play, but she does a great scene with us. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see her and all the cast that you've reassembled. Give us the spin, give us the 30-second spiel on this show. What's the storyline that you can reveal? Obviously you don't want to give away too much.
Well, yeah, I'll give you away, basically what the trailer gives away, which is Doc Brown comes back from the future and he engages Josh Gates to find all 7 of the screen used DeLoreans, right? Because they're supposed to auction one off to help Michael J. Fox's foundation to fight Parkinson's, right? To end Parkinson's, for Parkinson's research. Right. And then Josh and Chris Lloyd go on this adventure to try to find and hunt down and figure out what happened to all of them. First, you have to find out there's 7, and then you got to figure out what happened to all of them, right? And at the end, you got to figure out which one is available and which one we're going to be able to auction off for Michael J. Fox's Parkinson's Foundation. So that's the crux of it. I mean, and there's so many twists and turns and weird stuff that goes on and cool stuff, because we're in this sci-fi, time travel medium, which is really hard, by the way. I'll tell you a story. It must have been like 6 hours, 7 hours went by in one meeting, and it just pissed me off. It was so crazy. So when you're dealing in time travel, it's super frustrating, by the way, because it's not real, right? So you're dealing with time travel, you can almost, the guy with the idea can justify the type of time travel, and I'm going to give you an example in a minute, but the type of time travel that he wants to do and why everything explains itself out during his storyline. And then when we're in our writer's room, kind of banging this out. And then another guy would go like, oh, that doesn't work because you disrespected this law of time and that law of time and that law of time. And then you argue for a while and someone else comes up with an idea and then you start, and I don't know, it was like some massive Comic-Con nerd fight about like time travel. I'm like, guys, none of this shit is real. What are you talking about?
They start talking about black holes and freaking, all that stuff.
But it was worse. It was worse.
Space continuum.
Yeah, space-time continuum. Like that's very Blade Runner. You can't do that here. And then I'd call the creator of the series, Bob Gale, and he's like, no, you can't do that. Because at one time, I'll tell you the thing. This is gonna freak your brain out. You got to go back and watch it, right?
All right.
I had a scene that I was discussing with Bob Gale, which is a weird thing to even say, right? So Bob Gale co-created Back to the Future, the trilogy, with Robert Zemeckis. And he worked on the show with me on the entire script and entire concept, and he was phenomenal, right? So I had a scene at one time where, I'm not kidding, this is a scene that I wrote. Josh Gates and Doc Brown have to go to New York, right?
Right.
And so they're in New York doing some stuff, and then they all of a sudden have to go to Houston. And then out of the space-time continuum, through the wormhole, whatever you want to call it, comes a taxi DeLorean, which actually exists someplace. It's a taxi DeLorean, and driving the taxi DeLorean was Danny DeVito, right? So I've contacted Danny DeVito people, and Chris knows him really well because they worked on Taxi together. They're also in Cuckoo's Nest together. So we had all these connections, right? And so then we were going to take the taxi, right? Get up to 88 miles an hour in the taxi, go back through the wormhole and land in Houston, right? And Bob Gale says, you can't do that. Like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. We're in a time machine. We can do anything. He's like, no. You travel through time. You don't travel through space. So if you go through the wormhole in Central Park in New York, the only thing you're going to do is end up in Central Park at another time. You don't travel through space. You can't go from New York to Houston. all you can do is go from New York Central Park 1980 to New York Central Park 1880. You're just going through a time warp in the same spatial relationship. And then my brain hurt and I just had to go have a beer and hang out because it was like, okay, wait a minute, guys. Like there's all these, so there are theories of rules of time travel, right? And there's, you start going through them. It's like,
well, how the hell did everybody become such an expert on time travel if there's no such thing? It does,
because they're all based on theory. You take one guy's theory and he lays out this hypothetical BS argument about like, this is what time travel does, and this is why you can't rematerialize in another space, but you can rematerialize in another time. Okay. It's like, so we had to deal with, seriously, writing this thing, we had to deal with all these rules. Like, he's going to leave here. Oh, and it got so complicated.
Well, it goes back to the original 3-part movie series or the trilogy. The original movie was so effective on kids. My stepson at the time, Matt, he believed that hoverboards and that in levitation.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of kids came out of those movies seriously believing everything that went on in those movies.
Oh yeah, movies are magical that way. And by the way, it's interesting. One part we were going to do at one time is kind of like figure out all the technology that was actually faked or played in that movie. Flying cars and hoverboards and cell phones, and I mean it's amazing. Or even I think it was even like the Cubs win the pennant or Boston.
That's right. The Cubs won the World Series.
yeah, there's like all that stuff. It's like they were really close on a lot of stuff.
Right. Hey, yeah. So I want to give a shout out, and I'm sure you do too, but Josh Gates, man, I am a big Expedition Unknown guy. I love that show. And I actually was telling Cynthia, I love it more now that, we're in the COVID situation because he's doing all these little interviews and his sense of humor just pops. I mean, the guy he is funny as hell. And then I watch your trailer and he's being a smart ass to Doc or Chris. And he's like, trying to imitate him. That was priceless.
Well, Josh Gates is so professional. He's so good. And then what he end up get to do, and we kind of let the handcuffs off him a lot. I mean, in our series, he gets to interact with Christopher Lloyd and do some stuff. So he's really, really a professional talent. He's amazing because his timing's really good. What he's saying is really good. Some of the best lines, and everybody says this in Hollywood, right? Yeah. But some of the best lines he just made up. He would be bagging on our writing and rewrite it. And then it was like, oh yeah, that was much better. Okay, cool. And you just let him do it.
Don't tell me it wasn't. I'm telling you it is. I love it.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of fun and we can't wait. So March 15th for everybody out there. Now, where do we get it? Is it streaming as well on a network, or how do we consume this great show?
Initial premieres on March 15th on Discovery Plus, which is a new streaming platform. And then eventually I think we'll get on to Discovery Channel, the linear channel later on. I mean, that's how you're premiering everything now. It goes on the plus side and it'll go on the linear channel later on. Since you like Josh Gates, Josh Gates Tonight, the show, there'll be a couple interesting time travel specials and some interesting guests coming up on that too. So you'll be able to watch it.
That's great. Perfect timing. Well, we can't wait. I know I speak for myself and probably a lot of others. It sounds like a great show, and looking forward to it, my friend. Thank you for pulling that together for the rest of us, time travel nerds. And just, I don't know, there's something still magical about going back to what we love, whether it's TV shows or movies or clothing or music. The nostalgic aspect about what you've done here is probably what gets me super pumped up about it.
Well, we get to see cool cars too, because the DeLorean, I probably didn't talk enough about it, but how many collectors you have? I mean, DeLoreans is a really cool car. One thing that I found out, because we ended up, touching and feeling a lot of it, was like a lot of what John DeLorean was doing is right, by the way.
Yeah.
I play with and have a bunch of old cars that are 35, 40 years plus. Yeah. Those cars are in great shape. Has that fiberglass tub and the stainless steel outside. Yeah. They don't look, I mean, I've seen hundreds of them now, and they don't look like they're 40-year-old cars. You're like, wait a minute, what is this thing? This is a 40-year-old car? And yes, they're underpowered. You can fix that, but body panels are there. The fiberglass tub is all there. It's not all rusted. You're not climbing in, your foot goes to the floor like Fred Flintstone. I mean, it's he had a lot of good things going on those cars, and I'm glad people are, buying them, collecting them. It's cool. I promise you, go get some now, because those things are going to, once my special comes out, those things are going to go up.
You won't be able to touch them. All
Yeah.
right. Well, one of these days we'll get you on the show and we're going to talk all about your car collection, because we don't have time for that today, but inquiring minds want to know what's in that garage of yours.
Yeah, have a few.
All right. So, hey, one more shout out for our other sponsor, Wicked Mobile Detailing. Wicked's a luxury mobile detailing, paint restoration, and paint protection service right here in SoCal. They specialize in high-end paint correction, self-healing ceramic, and that new stuff called graphene coatings that you're hearing all about. They also do clear bra and other services. Check out their YouTube channel, Wicked Auto Detailing, and see their professionalism, perfection, and unbeatable customer service, which you can always expect from a Wicked service. Contact them at 617-901-1417 and give your car the devilish good looks it deserves. Well, we've got a few more things we've got to get to before we let you go. But hey, so you're an extreme athlete, a thrill seeker. I don't know what you don't do, but this Baja 1000, and I see that you and your team won that one time. What the heck? How do you go from cars to racing to kind of, your producing thing to like, yeah, let's get in a car and head on down to Baja and compete with these incredible teams?
It's all interconnected, right? So BF Goodrich was a sponsor of Overhaulin in the early days, right? So they were one of our big title sponsors, and that's really back then how shows survived. When sponsors would see a show and go, wait a minute, I want to be a part of that. That's really at the tip of the spear of the culture that we need. So BF Goodrich was a big sponsor of mine back then for the shows. And then they had this celebrity race that they wanted me to go down and race in the Baja 1000. And literally, I can't even remember it was Chip and I just finished a car. It was a 1929 Model A or something like that. We were up for like 2 or 3 days. We talk about it all the time. And then we ended up getting a van, fall asleep in a van, and get driven across the border. And the next day we pop up and we do a quick little driving lesson. And we're in this celebrity race, right? And we're like, what are we doing? And so now we're in this celebrity race, and it's just Chip and I, and we're racing hundreds of miles through the desert, and it's cold and it's tired, and we lost and we got our asses kicked. And I'm like, holy mackerel. So then, and I hated it, right? Because Chip drives like an idiot, by the way, complete idiot. He drives like the biggest jackass you could ever imagine. Chip drives like that. But then when I got back to the United States after my first race, I'm like, that was awful. But if I train more, if I learn more about the desert, I pre-run the desert, not just like, pack myself in a van and get down there. I mean, I bet you I could do better at it than 12th place or whatever the hell it was, right? I want to do better. I got passed by Reese Millen at the end for like 9th place or something like that. It was awful.
Reese Millen, that guy's epic. He's legend, man. Oh,
I race against him all the time. Yeah, I race against him. I mean, sometimes I beat him and sometimes he beats me. But yeah, Reese is awesome. And then so I spoke with BF Goodrich and I said, hey, I really want to try that again. That was a little bit of a blast. Don't let Chip drive because he drives like a maniac.
He's out. Not part of my team.
No, because I here's what I think, and I'm not joking about this, right? Chip is such a car guy. I think that he saw French Connection in Bullet way too many times, and he thinks that's how you drive. He really thinks that that's real. Like your cars are going to survive all that shit, right? It's like he just thinks he's in a movie or something because he's just banging off stuff and blowing. Oh, it was crazy. So so BF Goodrich, we put a deal together. We did some stuff. I became one of the very first race ambassadors and brand ambassadors for him, and I started the race for him professionally. And then you just get the drug, right? Then you get the drug, which is called second place. And man, does that suck. Second place. And then I got a 3rd place one time. And it took me years, 8 years probably before I was able to pull the pin in 2012 and win.
Podium up. Oh, well, podium, you've been podium, but you hadn't.
Podium a couple times. But be at the top of the podium. Yeah, 2012 was a good thing.
So it took you 8 years. Wow. Yeah. But is that kind of your life story where you get into something, you fully immerse, and then until you reach a pinnacle, you're not ready to move on to the next thing. It's got to happen.
Yeah, you have to. If you're going to do military training, you go train with the SEALs, right? If you want to go racing, you race the Baja 1000. You want to go climbing, you climb Mount Everest, right?
Speaking of Mount Everest, that's another one of those people might say not the brightest thing you've ever done, but I'm going to say I totally get that because that's on my bucket list, even though I'm obviously too old to pull that stunt off, but I want to climb that mountain. So, I love that show. I mean, you guys are rescuing people that were either having a near death or bleeding out every orifice. So what blew your mind up there? I mean, you were there with the Sherpas and hanging out at 17,000, 20,000 feet, whatever the hell. What blew your mind when you were up there doing that show, man?
I don't know. It's really the size, the majestic beauty of the mountains. The Himalayas are very magical. To be there and kind of see that place is incredibly magical. Some of the honest answer, which we won't talk about too much, but the caste system is kind of interesting to a foreigner kind of getting stepped into that place and understanding what the caste system is, which I did not like. I mean, there were some certain people that wouldn't let me rescue Chinese people, and there are certain people wouldn't let rescue. This guy was from Tibet, so you can't rescue him. It's like, what?
So there's a lot of politics, huh?
Yeah, you can call it politics or caste or racism or whatever you want to call it, but they definitely have an hierarchy, and it was a tough position. I've done a lot of helicopter rescue stuff in my career.
Yep.
But that was obviously the toughest part because there are mornings that I had to decide between rescuing one person, but I'd have to put 2 or 3 people on my team at risk to do that.
Yeah.
Including our medic and our helicopter pilot and our doctors and our camera guys. We're going to put their lives on the line to fly to 24,000 feet and pick up someone who technically shouldn't be on the mountain anyhow. There's a lot of people who climb that mountain from other countries and even from this country that shouldn't be doing it technically.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they deserve to die. So we took a lot of risks, and luckily we nobody on my rescue team died. There was a lot of deaths that year, and we had some deaths at base camp, and we had some deaths on our climbing teams, but nobody on my production team passed away. So were
you up there at 2019 or what year was it? 2018 or 17? I can't remember, but 19 was a bad year as I recall.
19 was a bad year. No, we were after the 2 worst years. We were there in 2016. One of the reasons why I decided to do it is there was no climbing in 2014. And there was no climbing in 2015. So they had a massive earthquake and that killed a whole bunch of people, 19, 20 people. And then there was a huge earthquake on the left side of Nuptse that killed a whole bunch of people at base camp. So 2 years in a row, you had all this pent up demand and nobody was climbing. And since then, what really kind of the evolution of that was Eurocopter came out with a B3E helicopter in 2011, 2012, right? So it was kind of like, it was just getting in where you could do a high altitude rescue, and then 14 happened, wasn't able to do it. 15 happened, wasn't able to do it. So when I came in 16, we had 2 B3E helicopters that could do high altitude rescues, right? Which weren't able to do. I mean, you start cresting over 22,000 feet with a full load, you're screwed. You can't do it. So we were lucky enough to have, and I rented, we were lucky enough to have the 2 biggest, most powerful helicopters to go up there.
Well, those, helicopter pilots in general are not dealing always with a full deck, and they're adrenaline junkies just to be doing their job, and then to be doing it on that mountain on top of it. That's a side story, but it's pretty incredible, really, when you think about it. But one of the things that strikes you about the things we want to do, whether it's dive on Titanic or climb that mountain, is it's you're right on the ragged edge of life, and why the hell that appeals to so many people and why so many people are willing to do it. Maybe it's because it's there and not too many people get to do it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you say you're on the ragged edge of life, and I disagree with you. I mean, you're living life at that point. Right? Yeah. I don't know how much life you can live sitting on your couch, but that doesn't appeal to me, right? If you only know you're true alive when all of a sudden your life's on the line and you're making right choices and things are slowing down and you're doing stuff. I'm not saying go out and do a bunch of death-defying shit, even though that's kind of how I live my life.
Right.
But, man was really built to test themselves, right? You test yourself in triathlons and endurance racing, in jiu-jitsu or fighting or, you have to challenge yourself. And I think as you build success, you have to continue to build stuff that challenge yourself and push yourself. Otherwise, you're dead. You might as well die anyhow. If you're not pushing yourself and challenging yourself, you might as well be dead anyhow.
Well, it's a great point. I love the way you connect the dots on that. And, since you've done all these death-defying things to pursue the limits or your limits, Your wife, AJ, she's obviously very, very popular in TV land and certainly all other circles from overhauling. So what does she think of your death-defying lifestyle when you're up at Everest or
she doesn't like it. Yeah, my wife is not. She does not like it at all. I mean, so I'll just tell you this story. We can close it. So I worked really hard and trained really hard and did a bunch of stuff and raced for many years. And I remember, and it was so kind of deflating, right? I was at the finish line in 2012 when we were down in La Paz, and my team just won the Baja 1000. I was so happy. So I grabbed the sat phone out of the back of the car, undid the bag, and I dialed her number on the sat phone. And I said, "Hey, baby, guess what? I just won the Baja 1000." And she's like, "Good, you can quit now." And she hung up on me.
She did not.
No, 100%. She said, "Good, you could quit, go out on top," because my wife is very smart. She's like, "Go out on top." She hung up on me. Like, it wasn't like, "Congratulations, I'm glad you achieved your dream. You always do what you set out to do." Nothing. There's no words of encouragement at all, other than, "Okay, dumbass, you need to stop doing that." You would just like, it was just flat out, don't care.
So, you married for beauty and brains, because she's obviously a smart one during that conversation, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
What a story. Well, I love it. So, hey, we're going to wrap it up, but how do folks reach out to you, and to learn more, obviously, about Expedition Back to the Future and all the great stuff you and your team are doing at BCII Productions?
Yep. So we are on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all BCII Productions. We post weekly on all the crazy stuff we're doing and the shows we have coming out and what we're promoting. Our social channels are just for that. There's no personal stuff on it necessarily. But yeah, we're always, cranking out, and reach out to me like you did. Obviously, we're very active and responsive on stuff on all of our social channels.
Well, I'll tell you what, you really are. And I can't thank you enough. You guys have been awesome. And we can't wait to see this great Expedition Back to the Future show coming up March 15th. For those of you that don't have Discovery, you better get it.
Discovery Plus, you can get it. Just put it on your phone, put it on your tablet. It's pretty easy. It's amazing. There's like 60,000 shows. I'd like to say half of them are mine, but that might be a little bit exaggeration. But hundreds of hours of my shows are on there, so I kind of like the platform.
But I get a distinct feeling you don't do a lot of sleeping, man. I've never, when I looked at all the stuff you've accomplished, I'm like, who creates 15, 10 different things in a year? Like, there's not a lot of sleep going on there.
No, yeah, I don't want to sleep. I don't want to sleep, and I work every weekend. I'm working this weekend. I'm going to Vegas, got a bunch of meetings. We're going to watch the race on Sunday. My friends are at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We're lucky enough to be invited to that. So yeah, it's always connecting and doing business.
Well, thanks. Hey, but we can't thank you enough. You've been great. And we'll share this out with the folks out there. And then for those of you that are watching us today, don't forget, all of our episodes are on our YouTube channel, the SoCal Car Scene, all separate words, where you can view all the videos of our awesome guests like Bud. Please watch, follow, and most importantly, subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you prefer to listen to the show, go to all your favorite podcast platforms like Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Google Play, and the SoCal Car Storage /SoCal Car Scene page. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and that's a wrap.